Have you ever spent time shopping online only to decide at the last minute that you're not going to go through the purchase? Well, I know I have. And in the retail industry, this is called cart abandonment. And according to retail operations expert Andy Powell, it is happening a lot more than retailers actually want. Andy works with businesses, both big and small, to help them combat this problem. He joins me now to enlighten us all. Welcome, Andy, to the program.
Thank you for the introduction, Heidi. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, I should say, now you're a judge at the Online Retail Awards, and you've been doing that for how long now?
It will be 5 years out of 7 this year. I started in 2010 by chairing the awards panel.
So you know a little bit about retail. You've been in retail for about 12, 13 years prior to going into consulting, is that correct?
Yes, I have about half of my career has been in retail line management, operations and supply chain and IT, and the other half consulting to retailers.
So now you tell everybody what to do and what not to do, and I'm sure you get some great insights from the award submissions?
Well, judging the awards every year is a wonderful way to keep in touch with the best of Australian online and omni-channel retail. By omni-channel I mean, of course, those retailers who have both a physical presence and an online presence. It's really a joy to do, and you really see some wonderful things, and it allows you to understand the trends in the industry.
I mean, that is a trend, isn't it? I mean, we used to all talk about digital, but now we sort of talk about this omni-channel, where we know that consumers are having an experience online and offline, and they want it all to be quite seamless. So what are the tricks to making sure it's a good one?
Well, retail customers don't see channel. They just see a brand. They see product, they see a brand, and they want to engage. So the trick is really to view it from the consumer's perspective rather than to set up these distinctive and distinct channels, because that just gets in the way of the experience. So if you're a high fashion retailer, you need to have a high fashion sensibility on your website. If you have a high
fashion sensibility,
so you need to represent, so if your brand and your products are beautifully merchandised in the store, they need to be beautifully merchandised online. If you have a high service model in the store whereby you have a lot of customer service staff and they're able to really engage with the consumer, you have to try and find ways to take that online. And there are lots of digital tools and techniques that retailers use to really get that deep immersive engagement with their consumers, even though it's online and the sales assistant isn't there. Because of course, if something quite goes wrong with the sales assistant present, he or she can rectify that and can help you proceed to purchase. Online, it's harder, and once you've annoyed the consumer or you've lost them, that's when cart abandonment occurs.
So it's an interesting concept that, you know, when you're in, and let's say take fashion as an example, that you get that personalised experience where someone says, "Oh, you look fabulous in that," and they go, "No, your bottom doesn't look too big at all." So how do you get that experience happening online? Or how do you create that experience online?
There are some great retailers out there, and I'll try and infuse this with a few examples. And one of my favourite retailers is Bird's Nest, and Jane Kay and her team at Bird's Nest. They're an online retailer. They have a small store, and they're in Coomera in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales. And what they've done is they have a configurator online. So what that is it's a tool online whereby you can put in your preferences, your style, your body shape. If you remember a few years back, there was two ladies called Trini and Susanna who talked about dress your shape and not your size.
Body type or something?
Correct. And they've taken that and they've allowed their consumers to configure their profile online, not only in terms of social but also their physical profile and their preferences. And that is the template then against which they can shop the site. So they won't be brought items which are irrelevant for them because they've really deeply identified their preferences online.
That's really interesting. So is it about going, well, my preference is for, and I don't know a lot about fashion, Andy, I'm just saying that now, but my preference might be for handbags that are a label name, for example. Yeah. So you'll only be shown high-end handbags.
Yeah. So you might have gypsy style, or you might have city chic style.
You know more about this than I do.
Too much of a bloke shouldn't know this, really, but I just love good retailers, and Bird's Nest are a great retailer, so they really invest in the time and the tools online to get to know their consumer as though they were talking to them in the store, and that's what makes a good omni-channel retail.
So this concept of getting your treating your customers as friends, does that go beyond what you've just explained there?
I think it does. If you think about the change in the nature of retail over the last 20 years, 20 years ago, the retailer had control. They controlled the merchandise, they put it in a place that they controlled, and they knew all the information about that. Now, all of those things have disappeared. As a consumer, I can access any merchandise from anywhere in the world. I don't need a store to do it, and I probably know more about the merchandise when I walk into the store, certainly if it's a complex purchase, because I've researched it online. In that vacuum of power, the retailer has to redefine their role, and their role is to be a friend to the consumer and help them in their whole purchase journey. So one of the key things we're seeing is that it's not just around the right product merchandised well online. It really is the whole experience, including the delivery and fulfillment. So in a sense, fulfillment used to be 20 years ago, back of house, nobody ever saw it, was delivered in bulk to the back of the store.
Yep.
Now it's delivered in penny packets to my house in a parcel with a handwritten note and almost sealed in a bow. Well, just
where do you shop?
It just depends what I buy. But Bird's Nest, again, are brilliant at doing that. T2 is another retailer that really does that. And so what they're doing is they're crafting or curating the delivery experience to give you a moment of delight when you open that parcel.
So you're talking about not just cart abandonment, which I do want to get to and also understand, you know, what are some key tips for making sure that you get more thank you success pages. But you're also talking about once they've actually paid their money and delivering the product to the door.
Yes. So cart abandonment occurs because when you're online, you really can't see, it's a bit complex. I can't see how it's going to be delivered. I don't know how much it's going to cost. Is it available in my local store if I want to, you know, pay and collect later? And it gets in the way. But once I've made that purchase, so if I can be happy that I make the purchase, once I make that purchase, then I'm making a direct contract with you to deliver to my house, realistically, normally to my house. And on that basis, it gives the retailer an opportunity to engage in the process of that delivery and its arrival and the opening of the box. Another example here is the retailer T2. They're a specialty tea retailer. They sell tea and tea wares. Now, the price point is below $20 for the item, but it arrives beautifully crafted in a beautiful box with one or two sachets and free samples and whatnot. And it is almost as though it's opening a jewellery box when you open the package, because it's beautifully thick black embossed card with T2 on it and a magnet fastening. And what they're doing is they're imbuing the act of receiving this as though it were a really high luxury item, and that makes a difference in the perception of their products and customer loyalty. It is.
And what about in terms of just getting greater conversion on the website, so reducing the cart abandonment numbers? What are a couple of tips that you've got for people as to what they should do?
So I'd start by calling out a few metrics here. So if you're not getting 2% conversion, if 2 out of every 100 customers on your site is not shopping with you, then you're not even getting your fair share. If you're getting between 3 and 4, you're doing pretty well. North of 4, you're doing fantastically.
So that's visitors. That's not even people who enter the cart.
So that's visitors. So if you're getting 2 converted out of, well, if you're getting 3 to 4 converted out of 100, you're doing well. I tend to work with retailers who are in that kind of low 2s to try to move them up the conversion scale to 3 and beyond 3. There are 4 or 5 things, but I'll point out 3. The first thing is, one thing that gets in the way is confusing information. I was checking out a retailer's website 2 nights ago. I went and clicked on delivery down at the bottom of the page, because often you'll find the delivery details kind of buried on the page, which itself is it's almost a secondary consideration in itself. I clicked on that. I got 2 pages of a legal contract. And it was terms of carriage, and somewhere buried in there was how much the delivery would cost. So the way in which you show your information can really get in the way of conversion. Who's going to wade through that? Now, that's the sort of thing you can fix at no cost by just reorganising the information on your website. So things like having, here's the product, this is how much it costs to ship, this is when it ships, is it available in my local store if you have stores, actually in the product view, and then if I do click on something like delivery, just give me some nice basic information about when I'll
dumbing
get
it down.
Making it simple and clear, and not hiding behind legal jargon around terms of carriage.
So another tip
would be really think about options. Dan Murphy's is a good one for this. Oh, by the way, on information, I would point to Zanui and also Appliances Online. I think they're doing great things in terms of how they array their delivery information. I think Dan Murphy's are doing great in terms of the number of options that they have for their consumers. If I'm a Metro consumer with Dan's, I have 6 options for delivery, from a week's time, 3 to 4 days, next day, I can have it at a weekend or an evening or out of hours. I can have it delivered to a different address. Some of them cost, some of them are for free, but I have a range of options available that suits me.
Okay.
It suits me, and I can self-manage within that. I don't need somebody to do that. So that's a help.
Well, I think you've certainly given us a lot to think about and a lot of different ideas on how we can improve our or the experience that we're offering our customers online. So thank you very much for joining me, Andy.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers. Thanks. And coming up after